I'm with AutoFi. Name's Chris Traylor, VP of Engineering, Chief Architect. A little about myself. Been doing web stuff for a while. Anyone remember Mosaic browser? 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. All right, 5 people. All right. Yeah. So back then, been using JavaScript since early Netscape. Fell in love with it for not immediately, but after a while, it grew on me, and finally, I really like it. Lots of reasons. Won't go into those, but really, I'm excited about the kind of day and age that we live in now, because now we can actually go, the entire platform could be all in JavaScript. It's amazing. From the client and SPAs to the middle with Node, and the back with Mongo, even a little Redis sprinkled in there. It's all familiar, all a single language or format, and I really love it. I really do. All right, so I thought I'd do this a little differently. I wanted to talk a little less about how and a little more about why. So I really want to answer the why. Why do we pick the stack? Why are we using the tech that we're using? There's plenty of demos, plenty of slides, plenty of websites that you can go out to and learn super cool stuff, way better than I could ever explain it. So I figured I'd give you why. Why? Go through our kind of a little bit of our decisioning and the key points that we use to kind of evaluate stuff. I like to find the best tools for a project, app, business. As a developer, we get lots of toys flashed in front of us all the time. A new framework, a new module, a new whatever, new service. It gets really exciting, and we want to use those things. But just because there's something new and flashy and cool doesn't always mean it's a great fit for whatever we want to use it for. So that's kind of what I'm trying to structure this as, a little more of when to use it or why we used it. Quick overview, talk about the problem we're solving, the issues that we're trying to address, obviously a little bit about us and AutoFi and what we're doing, go through our tech stack, and then get to the good answering the why question. All right, the problem, auto industry. So a little backtrack first. AutoFi, are doing financing for cars online. So everything's fully automated, sign with your finger. You don't technically have to talk to a dealer until you pick up your car, kind of thing. Find a car you like, click the buy now, fill out your credit app, get instant decisioning, get to pick your own deal, see all the numbers that make sense for you, and then pick your products, sign with your finger, boom, you just bought a car. Pretty cool. So the problem. Auto industry is pretty bad. It's in a little bit of turmoil right now. Very anti-consumer, right? It's really not about the end consumer when you walk into the dealership. It's more about the dealer and the manufacturer. So what this kind of means is, for instance, financing. Well, how many people have bought a car? Almost everybody, right? So raise your hands if you thought it was a great experience. 1, awesome, good for you. So 1 out of however many, 2, all right, fantastic.
You know how to do it.
So yeah, you've been there, you're a vet. So yeah, so mostly not a great experience. And that's a big problem in the industry is they don't like it. Consumers don't like it. It's not something I look forward to, and it's your second biggest purchase you make besides a house. And you should be excited. At least I do. When I buy a car, I'm excited to get the car, and can't wait to drive it. Can't wait. But man, there is one thing I can wait to do, and that's to talk to a dealer, go in, wait for hours, all that stuff. So it doesn't feel like that's very consumer-centric, especially in the day and age we live in now. Instant everything, consumer-focused. So it's not a good industry right now for a consumer. To me, it's still living in the past. All the tech that they use, most of the integrations that we do are XML and SOAP and stuff that I'd rather not do. I love the JSON, won't lie. But the whole thing is kind of in the past, right? So even their business models and how they do things is still decades old kind of stuff. Hasn't really caught up. And there's been a lot of companies that have gone out and tried to solve this. From online car buying experience to better websites and using technology, but it still doesn't feel right. It's not really still geared towards that consumer. Another thing that I think is if you bought a car and had some financing, you probably sat in an office, the finance manager's office, for a couple hours. The average, I think, is about 3 hours. That's a long time. And I'll tell you a little secret, you didn't need to wait 3 hours. Maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. But really what happens is you walk into the office, they fill out the credit app, which takes forever. Then they send it out to a bunch of banks, or maybe even one bank, depending on their relationships with these lenders. They'll get a bunch of offers back, but they get one offer. So here's Chris Trailer, and here's an offer for Chris Trailer. So the finance guy will sit there and say, okay, this one, I'll make the most money on this one. Seems like a consumer will probably buy it. Okay, that's your offer. They come back out. Hey, Chris, great news. I've got a great deal for you. Here it is. That's not a lot of option. You kind of take it or leave it. Maybe you're a negotiator, so you try to negotiate and go through the rigmarole. But there's no choice in that. I didn't get a choice of, he might have gotten 20 offers back. Well, I would like to see those offers. I'd like to maybe, everything's about risk-based pricing. So the bank calculated a risk on me, but they didn't calculate it to my exact specification. So what if I wanted to put $10,000 down versus $2,000 the dealer was suggesting? What if I wanted a longer term or a shorter term? So that's another thing. There's just no options. In this day and age, name something you can't buy. I think the only thing can't buy online. I think the only thing I came up with, a house and an airplane. But anyone else got any ideas? What's something you can't buy online today? Well, black market, I don't know. Yeah, so nothing, right? Also, with our digital world, we should be, if those who bought a car, you probably remember filling all that paperwork out. Ton of paperwork. Not only the paperwork, but also all the signing you had to do, right? So there's some dealers we've seen that they're actually 45 minutes of your wait is simply them just printing out all the contracts and documents. I mean, that's like literally 45 minutes. So they're talking to you and selling you other stuff or getting you coffee or whatever. That's A, a lot of paper, and B, that's a lot of time to just sit around and print stuff. Not to mention what you're about to have to read and expect to read and then sign it. Anyway, so that's the problem. So in summary, it was a lot of talking. Too much time for the consumer and the dealer, right? The dealer's got to spend a lot of time on this too. Customer has to wait a long time. High pressure sales. Not a lot of us are expert negotiators, nor do we want to. It'd be great to just see the sticker price and say, okay, I'm cool with that. So let me buy it. Not enough choice. Even though there is choice in the back office, you still don't see it. And not only is there not choice that way, but there's also not a lot of choice within the offer. So if I want to put a little extra down, if I put more money down, I should see or expect maybe a lower APR. It reduces the risk to the lender, etc. Transparency, another big one. I didn't really talk about this much, but you don't really know what the financial terms are. You got your one little box, but not a lot of people maybe read it. Dealers can use that kind of against you and slip things in. All right, so AutoFi. We connect dealers to lenders so customers can finance and purchase vehicles online. So technically, it doesn't have to be online. It could be in store, but you are actually online doing the transaction. So what we want to do and are doing, making financing and leasing more transparent. So all the numbers in there, we give them to you all. We show you all the calculations. We show you all the little breakdowns of everything from taxes and all the fees and the amount of interest you're going to pay on this loan. A lot of people don't realize, hey, you're about to pay $4,000 in interest. Maybe you want to take a couple extra points off that APR. We also try to put it into language that's more digestible. It's not just lawyer speak. It's not just some big box hidden at the bottom of the page. It's out there, kind of in your face, ready for you to consume. Another thing, probably my favorite thing, is give the consumer options. So we actually have sliders, just 2 little sliders, and change your life. One's for terms. So if you want a 3-year financing term, or maybe you want 72 months. So you can slide it across. Now, as you slide across the term, you should see your monthly payment adjust, potentially even your APR, if the lender supports the risk-based pricing. The second slider is the down payment. So now you can see what it looks like at 0 down. Well, maybe I got $5,000 to put towards this. What's that look like? So it really allows customers, or third thing, which is constructing their own deal. You don't get to do that anywhere. You don't get to just play around with, how is this going to affect me? What's the cost? And you just slide around and see all the numbers adjust. No pressure. So this is usually try to be less of a salesperson. This could be not a replacement, but an augment. The finance manager or sales guy. The sales guy can actually be more about making sure that you love the car, make sure it's a great match for you, and then hand them off with an iPad and say, cool, buy the car now. Now I can move on to the next customer and help them while I get your keys while you're buying it. It's super cool because you can do it from anywhere. It's online, so sales guy can send you a link to a new credit app with the car, a little AutoFi link, and they could fill it out at home at 2 in the morning and buy a car. Just got to go pick it up. So this is part of the giving dealers the tools. So that we're not trying to, dealers aren't our enemies, they're our customers. We want to help them make this more consumer friendly and consumer centric and have this process. Do that by capturing, converting consumers online. So that's one way. So on their websites that they already have and had a ton of traffic, how can they engage the customer when they're ready to take them through the flow? And simplify the process in store. So once they're in store, they're already there, they've negotiated a price, now they can just click, and instead of waiting around for 3 hours at the finance manager's office, they can quickly construct their own deal. They feel good about it. For me, I'd feel good about it. Which ultimately should allow a salesperson to sell more cars. If I don't have to spend so much time with a customer throughout the entire process, and then I can technically sell more cars. All right, I'll do a quick demo. Oops. All right, Ford of Escondido. So we're going to buy this nice 2014 Ford Focus. I've injected, they don't actually use our product, but I've injected our button to mimic it. All right, so I'm going to just kind of run through this and fill it out as I go, talk about it a little bit. So I gave them the email, which I like financing, you bet. I won't do a trade-in, I don't have one of those right now. All right, so I get to some basic credit application fields. They don't have a joint, although we can do joint or co-applicants. Phone number, I'm just going to give some fake stuff. Give my office address. Super easy, filled it out for me. Thank you, Google. I have a mortgage. Limits, All right. Bench, AutoFi. Oop, not for business. Going to use that for pleasure. All right, my birth date. This is not real. I'm much older. So, those of you that have filled out a credit app, was that the number of fields that you remember? And could you have filled it out that fast? Probably not. Usually there are about 40 to 60 different questions and data points that you got to give. For us, we've really pushed on the lenders to really only require the bare minimum that you really need for credit decisions in your decisioning process. That's pretty cool. All right, now the legal stuff we got to do. All right, so I'm cool. I agree. All right, so now it's going out talking to lenders, checking the credit for sometimes, finding any rebates if they're out there from the manufacturer, and voila, I'm approved. Fantastic. Let's see what I got. All right, so initially I see a 60-month term, no cash down, $208 a month. All right, seems like each of these banks is offering me something decent. Looks like they're all the same APR. All right. What's that?
Not the Wheatie Bank.
Yeah, Witty Bank and Chess. It's kind of cool. What happens if I put a little money down? All right, so now we see Chess ends up being a little better deal. So they give me a 2.82% versus the 3.54. All right, that looks kind of cool. So same cash down, 42 months. Cool. Let's check out this. So as I'm looking at the offer now, this is where the transparency stuff starts kicking in, right? So I can look at the kind of the breakdown of everything. So we actually go out to taxes and calculate all the taxes for the dealer, taxes and fees. So we can check out all those. So there's no hidden. There's not going to be something that's kind of thrown in last minute. It's all going to be there. Show the amount financed, the APR, the finance term or charge. Sorry, that will. That's how much interest I'm expected to pay over the 42 months. Right there in your face. There's nothing hidden. All right. So this looks pretty good. I'll continue on. Oh, cool. So I can pick the day of the month that I actually want to pay. I'll keep it 22nd of the month. Seems like a good day. Now, another thing that dealers really need is they call them F&I products, finance products. They're actually where the dealer will make a lot of money, and most of their money. Nowadays, the dealers aren't making that much money on the cars anymore. Especially if they're doing stuff online, they have to give kind of a bottom price or their non-negotiable, non-haggle kind of pricing. So they need to make it somewhere. Fair enough. Everybody needs to make money. So they offer things like vehicle service contracts. There's a lot of different products that these dealers can offer. Something we also do is try to just pick the ones that do make sense for a user. Not the crazy ones like, protect my tire valve cover or something like that. All right, so I'll pick a service plan, might as well. Gap insurance, basically if I total the car, usually used for new cars, but it'll cover the cost in between what you owe and what the insurance company will actually pay you. Yeah, I didn't know until I bought a couple cars. I didn't know about Gap. All right, so I've picked my products, that's it. Now as I go through my review screen, everything's fully laid out. The dealer, address, contact numbers, total cost of the vehicle, all the breakdowns, taxes, fees, add-ons, get down into the total cost of the loan and the car, down payment, then I get into the TILA stuff, just making sure I clearly disclose finance charge and expectations, and then everything about payment due. All right, so this all looks good to me. Now it's it's actually generating contracts. Yep. Now we have all the contracts. So I've got probably a couple product contracts, like the gap waiver, then the main contract as well. So now what's really cool, I'm going to go sign them. Obviously, I'd be very diligent and read through every single word of this. Demonstration purposes, so we'll just kind of breeze through. Initial, I've read all this, looks really good. Pull one over on me. All right, finish, now what? Oh my goodness, they just bought a car. That's the, we should definitely throw confetti. If I had some, I actually wanted to bring some and throw some confetti. That would be funny. Then I would have had to pick it up, so. All right, so kind of cool. So now we see, here's where I can go pick it up. We can see, here's all the documents I just signed. Go download them. That's it. I just bought a car. Pretty cool. Just a quick showing of something else that we're doing. It's we call it Express Checkout. So when we first started the whole thing, this was actually our button. So we tried to put a buy now button on the website, thinking everybody would know what buy now meant. But we figured out we should probably do a little more. So now we offer leasing. We actually allow someone to start playing before they actually submit all their PII and personally identifying information. Now we allow them to play around with stuff. In some cases, it's actually using potentially real rates, real decisioning. So you can actually kind of play around and expect what you see in here is pretty close to what you're going to get when you actually submit a credit app and actually do decide to buy it. Obviously, you got to be honest with your credit worthiness. So yeah, so you can actually play around. You can see the spinner kind of going as I move through the credit bands. We'd expect it to go down a little. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. Something to write about. Any thoughts or questions on? I just talked a whole lot. Yeah. Well, that's up to the lender, right? So technically, when we very first started, we were more in the online marketplace. So we were actually going to make credit decisions, and we actually did. And originate loans and then sell them off to whatever, institutional money or net worth individuals kind of thing. Then Lending Club kind of had a little hiccup. And we realized that investors weren't wanting 5% loans and 6% loans. That just wasn't going to be, it's not making enough money for anybody. So I actually got out of that, pivoted about a year ago, and now more working as kind of the piping in between the lenders, the dealers, and the consumer. So we're trying to connect everybody together in this kind of newer way where a lender's not bringing back one kind of deal. We want more. We want a matrix. We want those sliders, and that's how we talk about it. Is we need to fill the sliders. So for identity theft, we can't. We're not. It's up to the lenders and their credit risk analysis people to come up with. PCI, no. I think that's just for credit card. So originally we were really worried about that, and we still are. We're still hyper conscious about security. We store all of it. Some of it we will purge and erase right after the loan app actually expires or is sold. Some other stuff, like the SPII, so like SOCH, we don't need that any longer. But we do need the data that we can run our business on. So if we need to invoice dealers for, here's the 20 loans we sold or something, or for general reporting, or in 3 years someone says, no, you didn't sell that for me, and we have to show, well, yes, we did. And here's the car, here's the person. But we're definitely security conscious, and we don't want to keep anything longer than we have to. I don't want that data. I really don't. But I'll get into why some of the features of Atlas were actually met our needs, which was actually kind of tough to find. But I think your original question was maybe standards we have to follow. PCI, no, but every employee of our company has to go through bank training, just like we're a bank. Not very fun, but you learn a lot because it's actually kind of cool. There's a lot of things and regulations and policies and things you got to learn to do or not do, and how to protect the consumer, and we definitely care about that. Cool, thanks. All right. Yeah, so we just kind of got through our pilot, and we've actually partnered with Ford, so they actually invested some money. So we rolled out this new way to a few different Ford dealerships. They liked it so much that now we're blowing it up. So now it's how many dealers can we do, and how fast can we do it? So they've kind of turned this sprig on for us, and which is super amazing and tiring too. No, we actually encrypt some of it, like real encryption. Obviously, we do at rest. Any of the transport with anything is all encrypted, but yeah, at rest. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. Me. All right, there we go. That, demo. Okay, now about the tech. So I have a new acronym for us, either FEM or Venom. Kind of going with Venom because I think that sounds cool. We don't use any frameworks currently, client-sided frameworks, mainly vanilla. We use a little jQuery when we can, but the example I showed you, the second demo of the cool little bars with the estimator tool, that actually goes onto the dealer's website where they have a ton of stuff on it. I mean, those pages take forever to load. So even A, just adding more payload to it, or B, potentially injecting something that's going to mess up their site or our stuff, like even jQuery, or anything that's it's just too big of a risk, too much issues that we don't want to have. So we had to go vanilla on it, meaning just plain old JavaScript. So I'm leaning more towards Venom. So that'd be vanilla.js, Express, Node, and of course Mongo. JavaScript Everywhere, I think I kind of touched on that already, but I love JavaScript. It's awesome. And now this was a cool time and a use case that actually made sense to go all the way. So everywhere, JavaScript. I'm a big proponent of as a service. So anything I can get as a service, I basically want it, as long as it makes sense, obviously. But so we're doing as our PaaS, we have Heroku, obviously MongoDB Atlas, then some GitHub CodeShip and Heroku for our CI/CD, which really makes me happy because the whole CI/CD means we can iterate quickly, get code out quickly, get it into the user's hands, get it into building or measuring it. So now we'll get to kind of the whys. Vamsi had a way better architecture diagram. I did this in about 2 minutes and even forgot one of the key players in the whole thing. But basic architecture, we have dealers, lenders, we have I think 12 or 14 different third-party services that we have to hit during the course of a loan application and process. We're all completely in AWS. Heroku is hosted on AWS. They have all our API, web, and task servers, various apps. Then, of course, Mongo Atlas on AWS as well. And we used a few other AWS services. Kind of the point I wanted to make out of this was I don't have to really touch AWS anymore, which is wonderful. If we'll get to the kind of my love affection for Atlas, it's their UI and doing these things that if you went into AWS and tried to do it yourself, props to you. Some of it's kind of straightforward. Other stuff it just takes too long. At least for my skill level at AWS, I'm definitely no expert at it. But the rate of error that I might do by messing something up goes way up. And if you can just click, and something's done, I'd much rather have that. It's awesome. All right, JavaScript Everywhere. Why does that matter? Why is that cool to me? First of all of our devs can touch any aspect of our system. Whether if they're considered front end or back end or just the server stuff, everyone could technically hop on an issue and understand the code that's there. That might not be their proficiency, but they'll at least be able to get it and understand it quickly. So the client-side API, task servers, all the way to the data. It's awesome. For me, in my thought, it kind of avoids the dev silos. It kind of encourages full stack. I think devs become better when they understand parts of the system that they're not good at or that are not their proficiencies. Understanding the pay points and how things work on the back end can only help a front end developer. Same thing for front to back. It also allows us to easily transfer people between teams if they want to, getting bored of a feature, just want to do something new, from API integrations to the client-side front work, to data queries, etc. Increases knowledge. Plus, I feel like it gives them more ownership. So it gives a dev more ownership of the system. If they're touching more of it, understanding more of it, they feel more like it's ours. It's mine. All right, so why MongoDB? I'm kind of going to go backwards a little. I'm going to start on the right side. NoSQL documents, I thought, fit the use case. I thought this was a great use case to use, and here's why. First, from the data standpoint. You think about all the data that we're going to capture and use. It's going to be the applicant's data. It's going to be the vehicle data, maybe some of the products, some third-party data that we pull in to use as part of the whole thing. Any of the credit decisions and offers that come back from our lenders, then references to the contracts. So all that's really not going to change over time. So we don't need some big relational thing where if you update it once, then it updates over here. It really wants to be static. Once you get it in there, the applicant data is not going to change. It shouldn't. It can't. Technically, compliance. I mean, you don't want someone to accidentally update something because they're applying for a new loan or something. So it's largely denormalized at this point. I thought of it as kind of the deal jacket of how dealers do send these things to the lender. So they create these massive mounds, literally an envelope that has all the data that never changes, and they send it off to the lender and says, here's your packet, here's the whole deal. The other side, obviously, in the relational world, just selecting all the data for one loan application would be probably like 20 joins. Just made up a number, but it's got to be 15 to 25 joins just on a select. Also the 20 to whatever, 15 to 25 different inserts when you're trying to insert data. It's a lot of, I got sick of joins back in the day. Takes me back to, I originally came from RDBMS world, spent a lot of time in MySQL and SQL Server building big apps that did a lot of data. So I understand that world very much. So coming over to MongoDB was one of the things that was it was tough. Because for me, it was a totally different mindset. I wanted to stick relations in everything. I wanted foreign keys everywhere, star schemas and all sorts of stuff. Which brings back to the first point. Another thing I was thinking though that from the client side, nowadays we're building a ton of JSON and all these data structures there. So kind of makes sense. If you're already building these structures, why are these structures not good for the back end too? It might not be the same, and you want to make them different, and you don't want to kind of expose your schema. But all right, so next thing about MongoDB, flexible document model. So the fact that you have no schema was like mind-blowing for me when I first thought about it. How can you not define this? How can you not say this field is an integer, 8, or a 16, or a nvarchar 32? How can you not say that and define this stuff? It's just going to be gobbledygook, and trying to convert it later on, your ORM, or back in the days when you had no ORMs, just sounds like a nightmare. But that's where Mongoose comes in. I think someday, apparently I didn't know Atlas didn't officially support Mongoose. Maybe we'll talk a little bit later. But Mongoose, super awesome. I'll get to that too. Just as a quick, that's the only code I actually have in my presentation. But what did help me get over to Mongo was the two things, was references and embedded documents. So references saved my thinking because yes, there it is. There's a relational key. There's an ID that I know will link to some other document somewhere else. So I know they don't call them tables and columns and rows. It's collections and documents and fields or properties. So cool. So I finally had something that kind of got me over the wall and got me over the hump. So I felt safe. I felt like, okay, if I need to build all these relations, hey, there it is. That's how I do it. Embedded document. This kind of goes back to, it's basically just a complex structure that you can either define or not. But we already do it on the client. We define these probably complex objects that store our data. Why can't we just store that in the back end? Awesome. Another thing is productivity. I just think it's great that each one of our developers can touch everything. Kind of talked about that. Great tools like Mongoose. I'll talk about that briefly. Mongo's aggregation. Anyone played with the aggregation framework? Yeah, pretty slick, I think. That was also a big change for me coming from RDBMS world of how to aggregate. It took me a while. I'm not shy. That was not an easy concept at the beginning. Once you pick up those subtle differences, though, it gets a lot easier. All right, so that's Mongo for me. So a little more on, I might have already done this, but the flexible document. It's not your typical table. It's not structured, very structured data. It's whatever you want it to be. References and embedded, went over that. Super flexible. So for us, it is super flexible, but we're dealing with PII, SPI, and very specific things that we know we don't want to ever change. We definitely want a schema. So how do we get a schema? Get a schema via Mongoose, which is a great tool for this. Mongoose, everyone used Mongoose? No one? Anyone use Mongo and not use Mongoose? Oh, nice work. So obviously structured, unstructured data in the same document. They have cool things like validation. So Mongo has its own validation that you can write at the server level, but this allows you to do it at the client level, not the front end client, but before you actually commit it to the database or try to execute. They have a bunch of built-in validators. So they have like requires, a field required. Is there a min-max on a string or a min-max on a number? Enums. So like if you wanted 4 specific values, it's only 4 values you should have in it. You just bracket with enum, and now it's there. You can do custom validators, which is my favorite thing, and just put in whatever regex you want and call it the day. All happens pre-save, so before hitting the database, you don't have to do a network hit, get penalized with that, or even potentially corrupt data. It's already there. Other cool stuff like typecasting. You specify a number, you're going to get back a number. It's going to try to force it into a number. Population goes back to the references. So first kind of came over, this was a really important thing because I got my relational sense. I could just do my little join. And so if I had a user reference on a field, I can just say populate user. And now within the model that I get back from, within the document I get back from Mongo, now it's got my original document from the collection plus the entire thing from the user collection as well, or user document. Virtuals, super cool. You can kind of like computed columns or something like that in SQL or MySQL. Only gotcha with virtuals for me was you got to remember that they're not actually stored on the server side. They're all client side. So if you go and execute a query and trying to do some aggregation, remember it's that little 1 + 1 isn't there. Statics I thought was pretty cool. You can define these custom functions that kind of attach to your models. So if you wanted a very specific thing like find dealers that are active, you could technically think of it like kind of like a stored procedure in a sense. But those help a lot. All right, the only bit of code I have in here, I call it Mongoose Love. So this thing here. All right, so everyone's used Mongoose, so this is probably super too basic for you. But all right, so we're going to specify some of the, this is a type string for name required, definitely true. Little complex object with street and city, all strings, all true. But I get down to states, and I'm going to say it's an enum that I'm only going to accept these 3 values. Pretty cool. Then I did a custom validator. So zip, we did a little regex for only 5 digits. Test it, and that works. So after this, my next favorite part was just being able to write in the same document, have what Mongoose is mixed type. What that allows it is I can put whatever I want in there now. So for us, if we get back a credit report or different decisioning structures from various lenders, I can pop them all in there, and I don't have to worry about breaking schema. All right, so why MongoDB Atlas? Vamsi actually showed some screenshots, so thank you for that. I really wanted to do that. I think my favorite feature right now is the effortless scaling. The whole place, I think he showed you the page where you could, you click something and slide it. What you might not have seen is what I like to call click, click, boom, because to actually change your instance type. So if you want to add more memory and change your IOPS, it's really click, click, boom, you're done. You just did it. And it really works, and it really works super fast. Try doing that manually via AWS. It's not click, click, boom. It's like 500 clicks and some sweating. So really love that. You can scale up, you can scale back or down. You can scale out with sharding. It's just nice. If you want to add shards, it's a click, click, and boom. Security features, big for us, huge for us. Encryption at rest, absolute must. VPC, definite must. I'm glad Vamsi took you through peering. We don't need it yet, or can't use it yet because we're on Heroku. I don't think there's a way yet to peer with Heroku. Unless we go enterprise, and that's like $1 billion. So TLS and SSL is great. 2-factor authentication, whitelisting, all good stuff. Backup restore, you got a glimpse of that. Cost effective. It compared to the other vendors we checked out, it was just cheaper. For us, I feel like there's a big increase in productivity, mainly headcount. Probably a half to a person worth of half to one person worth of time to do all this stuff. Whether it's, if this was a manual deploy in AWS or wherever else, this would definitely take some time and dedication. Definitely stuff as a little startup I don't want to do. I want coders coding, and I think most of them want to code. And some like DevOps and stuff like that, but I don't want to have to hire someone that's really good dev, but really good ops engineer or infrastructure engineer as well. Unless you get lucky. Have great devs, but no one really likes infrastructure. So it's less time in ops, more time in code. No need for logging and dashboards. I mean, they got them built in right there. So you can definitely leverage more, and like New Relic is great for transaction tracing and stuff like that. But if you don't have time to do that quite yet, then they've got some cool dashboards for you too. I love design, so their UX is actually pretty good. Go back to the click, click, boom thing. They figured out you can just click something, slide something, and boom, you just increase your storage size by 100 gigs. I mean, super simple, with no downtime. Probably the most important one, business-wise, is processing controls. So at the time when we were evaluating vendors, we had a big company doing a survey on us and doing their due diligence. And security, obviously, for them was a big importance. And we needed to prove that if we're going to be on AWS, something we don't control, that this company has good processing controls around how they access this secure data. One thing is like keys, key management. So with encryption at rest, there's a key somewhere, and someone can access that key. But who can access that key? Do they have procedures in place? Do they have processes in place to control and make sure that not just anyone can see this key or use this key, but making sure that it's checks, balances, and audited and all this stuff. So super important for us as our own company, but also important to our customers, primarily our big lenders. So that's super important. And MongoDB actually worked with us. So they actually talked with us. They talked with our clients, the customers. They helped us through the process. We're very open and good about that. So we did talk to other vendors that surprisingly weren't, which was I just didn't understand. But so that's something when you're evaluating any as a service. Just if you're doing something secure that's really secure, then make sure that they have the processing controls that you'd want. All right, a little bit about our Atlas environment. Super small still. We have 2 clusters, only because we had to, but now we're finally convinced some people that we are safe and we are secure. So we get to finally merge instances. Only on the M20's instance was only 4 gigs of RAM. Each instance has 20 gigs of data, but we need to increase it. I was almost hoping to do a live increase, but encrypted storage, use that. That was a checkbox. Boom, check. I now have encryption at rest. Super awesome. Auto backup. You guys got taken through that. Super, super nice. Obviously TLS, SSL. And we're just low load. We haven't really been able to hardcore performance test it yet. When we were first evaluating it, I played with all the dials, I played with all the buttons, put some load on it, and it did well. But in real world, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't really have a story on that one. That's it. Thank you for listening.